Welcome to Engine Adventures. My name's Matt, and today we've got the 2020 Ford Ranger Lariat with the FX4 package. And in the back of the Ranger, we've got a Ranger. Go ahead and let him out. This is Ranger, my chocolate lab. Super fun dog. Anyway, Ranger, come. Make sure he doesn't get too far away from us. This truck is not new for this year, of course, but the Ford Ranger is a fairly new vehicle for the US, having taken a hiatus for a few years and nearly a decade, I guess, but we're back now, and it's a pretty capable vehicle. Not bad driving on road, has a high payload, so the rear end will buck a little bit, kick you around, but it's not awful. Definitely not anything like a 3/4 ton truck, but I would say many half tons do ride smoother than this one. It's got that little 2.3 liter 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. Let's pop the hood, and it puts out a good amount of power, so I'll put those numbers up on the screen, but it's a decent little power plant. This thing goes pretty well, and it's made it to that 10-speed automatic. All right, do 0 to 60 real quick. We're not building boost, just flat foot on the gas. 3, 2, 1, go. I like the 10-speed, but it's not as refined as it should be. So this truck, I believe, has about 10,000 miles on it, and by then the transmission should have learned pretty well what's going on and how to shift the best, but it still seems to struggle a bit. So it'll have some hard shifts sometimes. It'll get confused on what gear it should be in sometimes. Now compare that with the Nissan Frontier, you know, the same size of truck, with a 9-speed automatic, and that 9-speed is so much better than this 10-speed as far as always being in the right gear, downshifting super quick when you need it to. It's not deciding which gear it needs to be in, skipping over gears and all that stuff. It's just kind of where it needs to be when it needs to be there. In this case, it's still a great truck. That 10-speed gives you a good crawl ratio, you know, good low first gear, and gives you good gas mileage. But I don't know, the shift patterns are just still a little messed up. They're not perfect yet. So let's get into this thing a little bit more. So this one comes with this trifold bed cover, and it seals actually quite well, but when you open the tailgate, you got to make sure not to just close it, as it will fold that thing underneath. So pop that handle down and lift it up, then close it, and it seals along there. So it does seal pretty well. Another interesting thing, because it has this bed cover, you can see that glow-in-the-dark emergency release, and it has a clip for each one of those trifold sections, or a wire, I guess. You just pull the wire down, but it's got these breather tubes as well that will let the air in as needed. And I just realized this piece had fallen out. Let me grab that. So up here it's got this little slide, and you put this in there. That thing's been rattling loose for a while because it was tight when I first messed around with it. So you can slide that up and down, and there's this bar here, so you can hold that open and lock it on there. It actually will drop down inside of that. I imagine that's what that's for. If someone else knows, then knows something different, let me know. So anyway, I was surprised at how well it actually does seal. I don't know how there are so many leaves in there, but you can also see, you know, seeing light through there. I hope you can see my hand waving back behind there. So I don't know why it has those breather tubes on the front, the bent tubes or whatever, you know, just to let air pass through so it doesn't get pressurized or whatever. I know, you know, the back of the cab of the truck, they'll have vents, so when you close the doors, those vents pop open a little bit, let the air out, so it's easy to close the doors. But with this, there's plenty of air around the sides of the tailgate. You don't need that. So it does come equipped with the 7 and 4-pin plugs and a pretty decent receiver. I think it's rated, yeah, there you go, 7,500 pounds or 750 tongue weight. And I don't think Ford lists the weight distribution, so that's weight carry amount, which is pretty darn good. This particular, the FX4 trim or package, has these Dynapro ATMs, 265 60R18s. I don't know the exact size of that. I think it's a 31. I'll put that up on the screen. They are mud and snow, but they are not three-peak snowflake. I really like the black rims on this one. It's a good looking truck overall. This color is the race red, and you can see, probably here you can see the orange hues to it. So it depends on, you know, what kind of lighting you're in, but yeah, it does have an orange hue to that red. Capless fuel fill, I really like that, and they should do that on every vehicle, but that does require you to have some additional funnel so you can get down past. There's a cap here, another cap there, and I believe there might even be one more, so it seals really well. Here, so that behind the seat is your tire jack and that cap, or the funnel for the capless fuel fill. If you ever need to fill up with a jerry can or whatever, you've got a funnel there in the truck. You can see how tight this is. So this is my driving position, and I had to move my child over to the center there because her legs don't fit. So she had to have that extra space there to fit her legs in. And there's the rear facing car seat, and it's touching the passenger seat. My wife is pretty short, but she has it pushed back and lean back a little bit. So you could have a little bit more room in there, but it's pretty tight. You can fit like 2 adults. I'm 5'10", and if the car seat weren't here, but I have enough room. It's not roomy, but there's enough room there. And of course, underneath here, you've got storage. The seats flip up, and maybe when I do the off-road video, I'll get a couple of shots of that as well. Ford has done a really good job. This is a nice truck inside. As always, Fords beep at you constantly. So my headlights are set to on, which this one does. You can see the headlights and fog lights. If I switch over to just my, parking lights, and now you have the parking lights and the fog lights on. So it does pass the fog light test. These are real fog lights, people. There you go. Headlights off, fog lights on. Not super common. I'd say about 30% of vehicles have that. So happy to see that this vehicle does. Over here, so that's your fog light switch, headlights, whatever. Control your mirror, cargo lamp, and then up here, I do like the lane keep assist feature, because all you do to turn it on and off is push the end of this. And it's not super aggressive, so it would vibrate at me a couple of times, and that was it. It wasn't trying to take over, didn't drive me insane or anything. On Fords, this setup's not bad. This is similar to the Explorer and stuff, and you can just scroll through the different pages there, and you can change it, fuel economy, whatever. I'm actually curious. My average is 21.9 on the fuel economy, so that would be like your regular. I haven't done the off-road testing yet. So Ford, really great inside. This looks nice. Sorry, it's a little bit of a mess. Had the kids, dog, everything in here. But till you get to that screen, so it's something I can't get over. The screen, the background, whatever it is, it just makes it feel not as new and sleek and luxurious. It makes it feel like a cheap vehicle for some reason. I don't get that, why that screen's so bad for me. Anyway, I mean, you've got all your controls here. Climate control, you get 2 12 volts here, one on each side, and then there's also USB ports down there, and inside of here, no charging at all, which is fine because there are so many other ports. Like I said, 10-speed transmission, and I do like when you're in drive, if you just hit the plus or minus button, it'll show you the gears right there, and it has 1 all the way up to 10, well, I mean, it kind of skips through, it'll get you close. But then while you're driving, you can see exactly what gear you're in, and then if you want a manual shift from there, you know which gear you're in, how far down you can go, how far up you can go, whatever, you can easily see that. If you don't want it on, just hit the plus button again, and it turns off. Here's all the 4-wheel drive stuff, and we'll get into it more, but 2 high, 4 low, no neutral mode. Here, I'll have to check the manual and see if we can actually get it into neutral, so you can flat tow it. And then there's a terrain management, of which there are 4. So all the way on the left there, normal, grass, gravel, snow, mud and ruts, and sand. Then here, that's your off-road cruise control. I don't remember what Ford calls it. I'll put that up on the screen. Auto stop start, which I actually don't like having on. The rear diff lock, which can be locked in 2-wheel drive, if I recall correctly. It's not trying right now. There we go, just gotta hold it down. So there's the off-road page, rear diff lock, it's locked there. Traction control, your parking sensors, and your trailer tow mode. So pretty cool that you can actually lock the rear differential in 2-wheel drive. That's a nice feature to have. Sound system's decent, didn't have any issues with it. Plenty of control from the steering wheels. I didn't go over here on this side, but you can scroll through other stuff that, you know, changes through the stations, and then you can change to navigation or phone on that side as well. So that one's just the compass, and entertainment is where I'll leave it. Navigation screen's not bad either. Is this coming into blowing out from the sun? All right, but again, it doesn't have dark blacks. It doesn't feel as sleek as some other vehicles. So let's go ahead and move into the rear seat. No sunroof on this one. The rear window is not power, which is fine. You just grab it and throw it open, and I can actually reach it from here. If there's no car seat in the way, it's not too far of a reach. So let's jump in the back seat. Hopefully you can see this. So now we've emptied out the back seat, and it does have, well, first, before we get there, center armrest, cup holders, is 2 there, and then, so down there we have 2 USB ports and the 110 volt 3-prong plug, so you can see there. And then up here, there is that tether, and you can pull on that, tilt the seats forward. Behind here, there's your jack and the funnel for the capless fuel fill, and then some stereo equipment here with a subwoofer and amp. And then underneath the seats, as I check my phone out the car, there we go, underneath the seat, you have to pull that lever right there, and there's some additional storage underneath with your tire changing equipment here, a jack, and then of course some space underneath the seats. And then to release it, to put it back down, once again, pull that tether, put it back down. So the driver's seat, that's my driver position, and you can see that I don't really have a lot of room. So if you have 2 people 6 feet tall or more, as I'm under 6 feet, it's going to be really tight in here. And then side to side, there's enough room for 3 across for short drives, but really only 2 comfortably. Thanks for watching Engine Adventures review of this 2020 Ford Ranger with the Lariat trim and FX4 off-road package. This is the most off-road capable, and it comes with a lot of Raptor goodies in it. So you get the off-road cruise control, locking rear differential, all that kind of fun stuff. And it gets pretty good gas mileage. I'm averaging about 22 and can tow pretty well. 7,500 pounds what it's rated for, and I think it could do that. 10-speed transmission is pretty good, gives you a lot of gear range, but the shifts aren't as tuned as I would like them to be. Of course, that 2.3 liter engine with the turbos, the EcoBoost, will give you power when you need it. If you liked what you saw, be sure to hit subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications of any upcoming videos we may have, and comment down below. If you didn't like it and you give me a thumbs down, be sure to comment down below and let me know why so I can make improvements on future videos. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Let's talk about on-road driving a little bit here in the 2020 Ford Ranger. It actually rides pretty well and has the 10-speed automatic transmission, as I'm sure I've mentioned 100 times. But on the freeway, so right now I'm going just a little under 80 and it's at about 2200 RPM. So even with 10 gears, at 70 I was around 2000 RPM. You're around 2000 RPM at cruising speeds, so not too bad. Not as low as maybe I would think with the 10 speed, but still not too bad at all. And then it rides fairly well. It's not, it has any issues or anything at freeway speeds. This is cement, and you can feel the expansion joints a little bit, but it's not bucking and it's not hitting those, perfectly evenly. There are some wheelbases that are just the right length that when you hit the expansion joints, you really feel it. It's not really an issue in this thing at all. And it does have a fairly stiff rear suspension for a truck this size. It's probably maybe one of the stiffest I've driven in the midsize class, but really it's not bad for cruising. There's also another good thing about it being, at 2000 RPM or a little higher, and that's that the engine is spooled up enough, or has the turbo spooled up enough, that there's a lot of torque in that range. So if you need to accelerate, it does so pretty easily. You can, pass people if you need to, no problem. One issue I do have with this is with that 10-speed transmission, and I've finally kind of figured out what it's doing. So if you hit the plus button on the shifter, it'll show you what gear you're in all the time. And there are sections, for example, when I get on the freeway, I make a left-hand turn, and while I'm accelerating, so from a stoplight, make a left-hand turn, accelerate. As soon as I get straight, I switch from accelerating to braking because I have to make a right-hand turn to get on the freeway, which then changes from just a flat right-hand turn to going uphill for the freeway on-ramp. And that really confuses the transmission. And so, you're accelerating, so it's kind of keeping you in a lower gear, and then you let off to slow down for the turn, and it drops down to a higher gear, and then you go through the turn and accelerate again, this time going uphill, and it has to drop gears back down. After it shifted up when you let off earlier, it has to shift down now to go up the hill and to accelerate the freeway speeds. And it can take a second for it to figure out what gear it needs to be in. And part of the issue with that is that there are 10 gears, so it's not uncommon for it to shift from, like 7th gear down to 4th gear, so you're skipping a couple gears in between, and it takes it a second to think about that and get that done. Now, it's not super slow, it's just slow enough that, as a driver, and you compensate for braking, you push back in your seat. When you accelerate, you lean forward in your seat. So I find myself leaning forward in my seat, but the acceleration isn't there for a second, so it's like almost kind of awkward. I lean forward and then the truck will go and compensate for that. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but to me, I feel like that's what the transmission's doing. Whereas if you had something with fewer gears, you don't have to wait for all that stuff. You don't have to wait for it to figure out what it's doing, and it'll just downshift. And the Nissan 9-speed, as far as I understood it and felt it, it would just downshift a single gear right away. So you don't have a lag there because it's just downshifting one gear and it's immediate. Whereas in this thing, it's got to decide how many gears am I going to skip, and which gear is the perfect gear to be in. And then if it takes a second to do that, you may be changing your accelerator pedal settings, or the incline of the hill or whatever, and it causes it to make a change again from there before it's even gone into the other gear. So then it takes an extra little bit, and it just kind of uses more time than it should. If you're consistent on the throttle and just slowly accelerate, or whatever, slow or fast accelerating, as long as you're consistent on the throttle, there are no issues. It's when you've got to make changes, and maybe it's multiple changes or abrupt changes all at once, that it starts to get confused.